Welcome to another edition of the MNCAA Gophers segment of the podcast. Nate Wells here, along with myself, Drew Cove, talking a little Gophers after a very, very eventful and pivotal weekend, I might add, for Gopher hockey. They played their first exhibition game. Folks, that game doesn't count, but it is the number 6 Gophers against the number 16 St. Cloud State University's Huskies. So obviously, Nate, we talked last week to talk about kind of preseason, a lot of preseason expectations, a lot of newcomers, a lot of departures, and kind of the season preview type stuff. But in what you were able to see of the exhibition game, what do you think? It was just one game against St. Cloud up in St. Cloud, and Gophers ended up winning 5-1. So what do you think? What were your thoughts from what you saw of that performance for the Gophers?
Yeah, it was one game, and it's always fun to get Minnesota St. Cloud State. It's kind of a fun rivalry. Obviously, there's a lot of shared history with Motzko. Max Rude's dad now is an assistant coach at St. Cloud, and just kind of going on that end where obviously St. Cloud fans have a little bit of a love-hate relationship with the Gophers as well. I'm sure that anyone listening knows that very much. And of course, our good friend Nick Maxon now doing the St. Cloud State games on the radio. So props to him. I think really that just says that anyone who works with us is going on to bigger and better things. Us not so much, but if you want to do something great, work with Drew and I, because that's going to be how it's going on.
Absolutely.
But anyways, yeah, with the Gophers, it's tough to know how much to make out of these exhibition games. It used to be just really easy of, hey, everyone's get to play. You get an opportunity to get some reps under your legs. You're playing a Canadian school. Things are going to kind of get really chippy. Everyone's 24 years old to go try to hold your own on it.
It's like paying Mankato.
Yeah, exactly. You'll find some people you're like, "Ooh, I didn't even know those." It's like that NAHL team hasn't existed in 6 years. Okay, you'd be one of those things where you're like, "Oh yeah, I forgot that Alexandria had a team." I think I'm dating myself. That was literally something that happened maybe like a decade ago.
Oh my gosh!
I remember looking through the lineup. I was like, "Oh yeah, all right. I see where we're at for this type of." For this type of exhibition. But no, with the Gophers and St. Cloud State, it's tough to kind of put too much into it, even though it's two teams that and two teams that are vying for an NCAA berth. They're both trying to figure out lines. They're not really going up against one another. They're just kind of trying to do their own things to get things prepared. But if you're going to put some great stock into it, it's the fact that just Minnesota, as the game went on, just continued to look better and better throughout the 60 minutes that they're playing on the road in a hostile, non-counting exhibition environment.
Yeah, although the Gophers were scored on first, it was a pretty broken breakaway play. Some guy was kind of caught. Puck was caught in transition, and it got sent back to Miettinen for St. Cloud, and he came in and just roofed it on Erie. So it's kind of not really kind of a breakdown in anything really defensive there, just kind of a turnover at the wrong time in the neutral zone, and that's going to happen regardless of how much they can prepare for it. That'll happen. That if that play happens in March, they'll probably get scored on again too. So when it comes to goals against, I don't think there's anything bad, but I mean, I find myself fighting the urge to think that it means more than a complete like this game will be forgotten very quickly, if not already forgotten. But
I'll put it to you this year. Who did Minnesota play in an exhibition last year?
Well, I can remember just because it was Bemidji, but
all right,
I'm sure a lot of people out there don't remember. But who did they play 2 years ago? Who did they play 3 years ago? No chance anyone remembers. But it definitely is not the most how do we say, glamorous of games in this exhibition right at the start, because everyone's still trying to figure it out. But like you said, yeah, Minnesota figured it out as the game went on, and I do find myself fighting that urge to try and make it mean more in my head, to say, well, this is the number 16 team, and like the Gophers, you'd think that the two teams are still playing for that bit of pride and that bit of you know what, we still don't like each other really, and we're going to treat this as a normal game. And aside from the fact that the Gophers pulled Airy halfway through the game just to get Soulier in the last half, it looked pretty. It was pretty full for the Gophers, and I trying not to put too much stock into how really good they looked against St. Cloud, even because the asterisk is an exhibition, but they looked way better than the number 16 team as a number 6, and that doesn't tend to happen in the regular season. So that's kind of why I'm taking it with an extra grain of salt, but also saying, wow, they looked a lot better than the team that's also in the top 20. But I don't know. It's Nate, would you try to talk me off of that, or are you thinking about buying into that type of mindset as well?
It might be one of those games where we look back at the midway point to be like, okay, this is where St. Cloud is, and this is where they were, this is where Minnesota was, and where they're getting there, and we're going to have a little bit more context. For right now, I'm still a little bit putting it on there because I know it's an exhibition. If we're talking about the U.S. development team, where there's a lot of skilled players, but you're taking your foot off the gas. That's one thing. If it's a Canadian school that no one's going to be able to name, that's another thing. The same thing is going on. But we know who St. Cloud State is, and we know what their expectations are. And it is a team that does have some high expectations. They're ranked in the top 20 for a reason. They do have to figure some major questions out with some big losses in the offseason. And part of me is wondering how much of it has to do more with that, and Minnesota being a team who doesn't have to answer as many questions as the Huskies, or if it is one of those things where, hey, the Gophers are putting things together. And the more opportunities, the more reps, the more puck battles they're going up against, the better that the Minnesota is going to be against some of these top teams. So I'm still, I need to see some more work. Mm-hmm. This game doesn't count. I mean, there were some crazy exhibition scores across the country. There's some crazy week 1 results across the country. I saw a lot of splits where one team looked great one night, the other team looked great the next. So we're still, it's October hockey. Everyone's kind of at a different starting point. In a 6-month season, you have a lot of room to grow. You have a lot of room to go around with. So I'm kind of, there are things I really do like about Minnesota's performance in the exhibition. You touched on several of them, Drew, but at the same time, I have to at least tamper a little bit. And I'm sorry for being a little bit of a buzzkill.
No, I think that's the right position to have, because I'm just fighting the urge, because in my head I'm thinking, I'm like, wow, they look that much better against St. Cloud already, and maybe that's, who knows, it could be the indication, like, okay, yeah, like usually when the non-conference happens, we figure out what teams are a lot worse than they would have been. But I don't know. I feel like St. Cloud is a more stable product than a lot of the non-conference, some of the non-conference teams that the Gophers play, and figure that, okay, here's how this team's going to shake out this year. But your take, I think, is definitely right. It's just I just need to tell my brain to rationally look at this here and say, okay, exhibition game, anything could happen. And we already saw Michigan's season's over. You know what? That's many people are telling me this, but it's a very interesting week 1 or weekend 1 of college hockey, whether the games count or don't count. So
who would have expected Michigan to have to kind of struggle out of the gate after having to replace everyone? I mean, I never saw that coming. North Dakota, this is exhibition, but Augustana took them to the woodshed. Like South Dakota is now the better hockey Dakota based on exhibition play. Actually, honestly, I really hope that they start playing, because they're going to be playing a real series some point down the line. They announced it this week. I hope that they play for a trophy or something, because
you got to make it happen.
Got to make a Dakota trophy. The college hockey trophies are just fantastic, and having those little things going on would be.
I think there's a trophy collecting dust in your closet, Nate, that they could use. They could rebadge it a little bit, maybe, right?
The South Dakota Star College Cup. Yeah, no one's getting. Yeah, as North Star College Cup commissioner, I can't let him have it.
Nope. If you're holding out for the resurrection someday, I understand.
Yes.
But in other news, obviously, from maybe some overreactions about how good the Gophers are here, or potential overreactions, What did you think about some of the freshmen? I mean, we talked at length about them last week and how well they have a chance to make an impact, and how some of these guys are going to be coming in and trying to really make waves on a team that could need and use all the depth, performance, and that they can get at that level. And I thought, I mean, some guys like who was it? I think Brody Zemer looked good on a power play. I think near the end of the game, August Falloon looked good. I think some passing from Paulson looked good too. But there was just a bunch of guys going through that you saw them popping up in the big moments. But Nate, what were your thoughts kind of on some of those newcomers making some impact?
Yeah, the two that kind of really stood out to me were Zemer having those big opportunities and kind of being thrown into situations like that and trying to figure. And we have to figure out if it's the exhibition. Bob's trying
they trying things out,
or if this is what he's going to be trying to be counted on for the season, and we'll find out more this weekend. But I thought he stood his own, and it was great to see that there. Didn't look out of place on the line. And I really did like that August Falloon goal, where it's just dirty goal, just being right place, right time, just making that extra effort, because that's the way that you make an impact in college hockey. It's not the easiest thing to do as a freshman, and making that adjustment. And yeah, it's an exhibition, but you have to feel good about that. And I'm sure he has to feel really good about that, being a St. Cloud native and getting to play that in the Herb Brooks National Hockey Center.
Yeah, and for being obviously freshman, a lot of times they come in undersized, but man, him in particular, he's a big guy. I thought we were going to see Leo Gruba and be like, man, this guy is a specimen, but this guy is Falloon too, kind of is intimidating. When they got some of the close-up shots on the camera, I was like, boy, that guy's he's big, man.
He got the Darren Romanko, like I'm a man body already.
Hey, if he can hold down a penalty kill line like Darren Romanko could, you know what?
Yeah.
Then I think this team might be in pretty good shape for the next few years. So, but obviously, yeah, exactly. But obviously, aside from the freshmen kind of coming in and looking really good, Nate, we already touched on each of the goalies getting half of the game, and just kind of seeing that it looked like not a whole lot was able to really stump them. They looked pretty positionally sound, at least from what I saw, and kind of seeing some of the highlights and some of the game. But your thoughts on any of the goalies and kind of where they go from here? I mean, it does seem like they're probably just gonna roll one on Friday, one on Saturday from here on out, and order doesn't really matter, doesn't indicate a thing, and no starting goalie battles to be heard of.
It's not a bad thing if you have, right, especially in October, where you're figuring out your goalies, you're figuring out who can lead and get an opportunity. I like that Bob had both of them play pretty evenly amount, and it didn't seem like either were tested too much outside of the one breakaway. But for both of them, it's you're positionally sound, you're making the most, and you're playing a team that historically in the last 10 years or so has given Minnesota fits. But how much of that you can say also is just it's exhibition, it's week 0. They go for defense, but if you're putting yourself in a position if you're putting yourself in a position where you don't have to win a game, but at the same time you're not losing a game, that's really what all that Minnesota's were asking for both Erie and Solier right now.
Yeah, and it's definitely a different story coming from the one exhibition game against the in-state rival to now, finally, this coming weekend, shifting gears here. The Gophers are playing in the Icebreaker tournament in beautiful, lovely Las Vegas at the Orleans Casino Theater. I've been to that casino a couple of times, but I never found out where the arena is. But it's never been there at the same time as this, but it's certainly out there, and it's interesting to think that they play this college hockey showcase in this random casino off the strip. So who knows about that? But now that they're playing games that they're gonna be trying to win and they're gonna count, and I know I think a friend of the show, Eric Vigo, mentioned last week. He mentioned the word pairwise, so I'm going with it too. And these games are going to count.
Vigo can do what he wants, but I won't stop him. He's better. He's better than us. So
Exactly, but I'm gonna say that these games count. They will matter for the pairwise eventually.
yes.
You're not gonna make any grand judgments right now, but these are gonna count. But the first game against Air Force, semi-familiar team to the Gophers and to Minnesota people. Air Force went 18, 19, and 1 last year. But coming into the icebreaker, first game of the season, first game of the icebreaker, Nate, what are you looking forward to, I guess, in that game, plus the second game that we'll talk about maybe a little after, but also kind of piling questions on you here, but also Frank Serratori, what's your favorite story from the Air Force head coach?
All right, I'm gonna take these one at a time. First off, it's funny because I've been to the arena, the arena there. I've never been to the casino. My grandparents lived in Vegas, and I spent a lot of summers and winter breaks there where I'd watch the Las Vegas Thunder, I'd watch the Wranglers. So I always enjoy having hockey in Vegas. It's been great to see the Golden Knights and just seeing the support of hockey in the desert there. I mean, I'm sure we're a year and a half from a Frozen Four in Vegas too, so it's kind of a little bit of a preview on that end. Having college hockey there. As far as Air Force goes, historically, they are a very, very tough team to play against. Defensively, they're very defensively sound. For as eccentric as Frank Serratori is, talking everything, he has his team extremely, extremely disciplined. They do not allow very many opportunities. They make you earn every inch on the ice. Their goalies are almost always fantastic. They may not have the high-end skill that some of the better teams have, but they make no mistake. They are very much able to steal a win and play with any team in the country, especially, I mean, this time of year, it's week one of the season. Nothing is really set in stone. There are no easy games, but at the same time, it's an opportunity playing against an Atlantic hockey team. So yeah, I'm not going to mention the P word, but there are certainly some comparisons where when you play a team in Atlantic hockey, that having a loss on that one can always certainly hurt you in the long run.
Yeah, no, it's definitely going to be an interesting game to say the least, because it's a team that the Gophers haven't faced in a little bit here, and kind of gauging. You can only get so much, I think, from film before you kind of meet them out on the ice and say, okay, how is this going to go? But it is going to be a stingy matchup, and I do think the Gophers are they're gonna have that adjustment period, because I think even against St. Cloud and even against the worst teams in the country that they've played over the years, the Lindenwoods and the Stonehills and those types of teams, it's always an adjustment right away for any team really to face even some of the teams that are not projected to be the very best in college hockey. So we'll see how that game goes. But after that as well, it's either UMass or Omaha on deck.
It is, and yeah, one of the things I want to get back, I'll say. We'll talk. I got to get back to this Frank Serratori story.
I completely skipped over that.
Remind me of this. We'll go back. We'll talk Omaha and UMass, because that's probably good. That's a fun one to end with.
We got to get to the Frank Serratori.
We got to get to it. We'll tease a little bit more. I mean, like, look, I have a lot of Frank Serratori stories that are like all my children. Like, they're all favorites. You can't really choose. You can't choose one over the others, but I will try to. But yeah, for Omaha and UMass, they're both tournament teams. They both lost a lot of players and are trying to find their way. So this might be a great week to play them both. They both return some high-end goaltending. So again, this is going to be a weekend where I think goals are going to be at a premium. Minnesota is certainly, it's an excellent early season test on that end. And I'm trying to think, because Omaha played Wisconsin, I believe, this weekend in an exhibition, and which is probably a nice fitting thing to go against, which is kind of close. And I think it was great. I would say we're already at week one, and I already did not do the preparation for this one, but I want to say it was it was exhibition game. It was
overtime.
Omaha led 2-0. Wisconsin came back to score 3 and won in overtime. Air Force played Arizona State in real games this weekend. They got blown out on one. They came back and won in overtime the other. So that's another one of those ones where just there are no easy games. Everyone's figuring those things out. UMass, I believe, went kind of to town and had like an opening. I remember there's an exhibition or a real one too, which again probably should have figured this out before, but well, we're still an exhibition play
Yeah,
too.
I believe that is. They did play a real game
I think
against
theirs was
Bentley,
real.
but the
Yeah.
RPI game was an exhibition.
Yes. Okay. So it was both. Okay. Let's try to remember which was which. This is the problem with this weekend having both teams playing other schools in exhibitions, because it used to be when they didn't do that, you could at least tell who's the exhibition. Like if you're playing Canadian school, you don't say exhibition.
Yep.
This week it's like you have real games, you have exhibition games, and I'm trying to figure out how much to figure out what matters, what does not, especially as like things are coming in. Everyone's just being like, hey, well, this is our score. so we have a lot of those. But I think with both playing Omaha and UMass, they're teams that have Minnesota certainly has some history with, both in NCAA play in recent years.
Mm-hmm.
They both have a reason to get back at the Gophers. I'm sure Omaha would love to play Minnesota again after having their season ended by them this past March. So for me, the big thing is it's kind of the similar thing where it's two schools that have the turnover. You lose all Americans, you lose some of your best players, but you still have a good core and you still have the great goaltending that can certainly win you a game this time of year and really any time of year.
Yeah, and I really hope that Omaha prevails. Just I want to be able to see the Gophers against that Omaha team, and maybe it's the Western snobbery of college hockey-ness in my brain, but I definitely want to see Omaha because watching them at the Frozen Face-Off last year, they were really good at picking apart the other team's game, and even that team, especially one time doing it against North Dakota, and I think picking a team apart like that's more similar to Minnesota that you're going to get from a lot of different schools, even other teams in the Big Ten or any teams that in their conference too. But I think it'll be a big test if Omaha is able to really push those buttons on the Gophers to say that they can really pick apart what they're good at and try and dominate them. That'll be a really good test for the Gophers early on. Obviously, in this second game of the season, what it would be, but I just really want to be able to see if they're able to really hold the Gophers to task and to really push them to get that victory, not just say, okay, we're playing in the icebreaker tournament, gonna get a few 2 easy wins, but either UMass or Omaha not going to be no easy wins, and even Air Force not an easy win. But it's a tough weekend, and I'm excited to see what the Gophers can do against both teams that they end up playing.
Yeah, I don't think either no matter who they play in the second game, those are both going to be great wins at the end of the year if Minnesota is able to win that. And there's a lot that will help the Gophers as they come on the other side of the icebreaker and continue through non-conference and then eventually conference play through the season. It's not an easy weekend, but at the same time, Minnesota is set up in a way that this is a good year for them to be playing in this tournament.
Yeah, and Nate, one more before we get to the Frank Serratori story. That's hard to think to say in my brain, in my head. But
yeah.
One last thing, just on the games themselves. Aside from maybe getting a couple of good wins that look good near the end of the season, what do you think? What are you looking for to see out of this team as they finally play regular season games? In terms of development or any type of line looks or something like that? What are you looking forward to the most out of this Gophers team from the first 2 real games that they play this weekend?
The two things are, I'm looking to see how Motzko handles the top 9 and just be able to juggle lines, put some pieces together and see what works. Because there's a lot of pieces and just figuring out where players go, who works well with who. And you certainly have several complementary pieces. And the other thing I'm looking forward to is just seeing how special teams are going to do. We got a little bit of a preview in the exhibition, but at the same time, at times when it's been a strength for the Gophers, they are a very difficult team to beat. and we're going to be a week into the season, and just be able to kick that off and kind of have a base point of this is where the Gophers are, have your upperclassmen taking a step forward. Are you able to make the most out of your situations where you're drawing penalties and you're on the back burner and you need to kill something off kind of late? So those are my two big things. I think obviously there's the who's going to be in goal, and how that is handled. Drew, do you have any that you're really looking forward to seeing? What are your major takeaways?
Yeah, that was my main one. I want to see who plays in goal and which night. Because I'm leaning towards that. I want to see Soulier in the first game, but I want to see Airy in the second, and I want to see what he's. I kind of want to see that big test because we know Soulier can play against some of the better teams in college hockey, but I want to see what Airy can do against. Obviously, he played against CC last year, and that looked good, but I think. I think we need a bigger sample size, and I really want to see what he can do against a couple of the better teams in college hockey. So I'm interested to see how that goalie breakdown shakes up. I do hope it goes Soulier night 1 and Airy night 2, but obviously I'm not the coach, so we'll see how that goes. But other than that too, I want to see how the center ice position develops. I just want to see how where those keys are going to come from, especially without Jackson Nelson. I think he was a key draw guy last year, and I want to see where those all shake out, because obviously it doesn't seem like it'll be just one person going through all those. But I want to see what it's going to be like, kind of just down the middle, to see what strengths that they have to build outwards to their wings. So those are the main two. But it's certainly gonna. We got more weeks to have it all shake out. If we get lucky on our wish list here for for Santa or whatnot, they might not all happen, but if they do, we'll be very, very pleased. So without further ado, Nate, your favorite Frank Serratore story.
All right, my favorite Frank Serratore story, and this one comes from, I wrote a feature for the Wild. I want to say this was 5 years ago. It was the Hockey Day Minnesota that was up in Bemidji. And I wrote a feature on the Serratore family, and I've talked with Tom a lot. I've talked with Frank a lot. The Air Force played the Gophers several times in the Mariucci Classic, and he came in when his son Tom was playing for the Gophers. And there's obviously a big history with the Serratores and Mike Genso. They grew up together up in Greenway, up in Tactonite there. And obviously they know Lucia very well too. So you have the entire great history there. So I've known him long enough, and I haven't fully sat down or gotten to write a feature and talking to him. And I am talking to Frank while he is driving through the rink to the rink up in Colorado Springs. And I've heard this story. I've heard a story from him before where Joe Paisley, who was the CC and Air Force beat writer for the Colorado Springs Gazette, would say that, like, I would talk to Frank on Monday and he'd be working on his routines and everything, and just what he's going to say at the press conference. And he'd kind of be doing that. He'd be testing it and everything. And I think I'm talking to him on like a Tuesday or something. And he gets to the gate. He's like, Nate, I got to put you down for a second. And just puts me down. I hear him talking just the same way that he talks in the press conference, the way he talks to just everyone. He is talking to the guard, letting him in at the Air Force Academy. I'm just like, this is amazing. I'm just hearing this because I was telling me, he's like, Nate, how you doing? Okay, get back to your question. Let's go. It's like, I got my ducks in a row. We're good. Okay. And it's one of those things where I think I spoke to him for about 20, 25 minutes. I had asked like 10 questions. Like, I didn't have to do that or follow-ups. Like, he is just going on and on. He is happy. There are some coaches who are like, I would rather get my teeth pulled out than talk to you for a story. Frank is like, I will give you all the time you want. I'll give you more time and tell you what, I will keep going if you need to. That's fine. But for me, it pretty much, I think, tells Frank, just in general, where he is the same person talking to the guard to let himself to get into the Air Force Academy than anything else. Like that is who he is. Like, if ESPN ever get a Manning cast style for the Serratores during the Frozen Four, I've been saying this probably for like 5, 8, 10 years at this point. Like, if they ever want to do something like that, like an alternate broadcast, I would be set for life. Like, it would be the most entertaining thing. Like, this is just how it is.
That would be good. His press conferences are something of legend. I've never met him in person or talked to him really, but it's definitely hearing all the stories from all the people that when I got onto the Gopher beat, it was definitely interesting to hear all the different stories that this hockey lifer, I guess, is the proper way to put it. So I know that word gets thrown around for a lot of guys, but that's it seems like he's one of the true storytellers and good ambassadors of the game, kind of giving people a lot of time and giving people as much access and accessibility to him as he possibly can.
Yeah, entirely. And I mean, he has a history with Motzko as well. One of the fun things with Air Force this was 2018 when they upset St. Cloud State and then the nearly upset Duluth. It was the one that Minnesota missed, but I was in in Sioux Falls with Chad Graff, who was with he's still the Athletic, but he was with Minnesota at the time, and Randy Johnson, who's the Star Tribune beat writer, and neither of them had met Frank. They knew the stories and everything, and they're such the coaches. It was Hastings, Sandelin, Motzko, and Frank, and Frank has a connection with all of them in addition to Lucia. And this was I want to say this was a Friday. Lucia had stepped down on Tuesday. And so obviously that also came up for a story. But his entire press conference, and I felt bad for whoever had to transcribe it or whatever, because it was like, it had to be like 8 pages or something. Just keep going. So one time we were like, yeah, keep going. But like, just, I was sitting next to Chad, I was sitting next to Randy, and they're both just like, jaw drop, like, this is amazing. Like, I can't believe this.
We need him as a person like him in every program in the country. Yes. just to be able to talk everyone's ears off and to help make stories even that much more interesting about the game. But wow, that is a pretty good one.
And we're fortunate in college hockey that there are a lot of storytellers, a lot of coaches who enjoy teaching the game and telling stories and being approachable and open on that end. It's not, it is a big time. We have major programs, but at the same time, it's still kind of a small family feel. Everyone's in it to help out everyone.
Yeah. And with that, Nate, you mentioned Frank at the time, and at the time of your story, he had all his ducks in a row. We now have all our ducks in a row. It looks like as your shirt as well. They are all ducks. The Vikings have all their ducks in a row, more or less, at 5-0. And meanwhile, I'm here still sweating over a soon-to-be 0-5 start to my fantasy football season. So,
yeah, I've worn this shirt for the 5 weeks, and you know what? It keeps working. I've only had it once. I enjoy it because it's literally like I don't live in Minnesota anymore. No one understands Duck Duck Grey Duck here. I made fun of it. One time I was walking down the street here, and someone literally just looks at me like Duck Duck Grey Duck, and I was like, "Hello, new friend."
There we go. You meet even in New York, you meet a lot of friendly faces.
Yes,
and like you mentioned, small world. Everything's a much smaller world than we think. So
everything's a story. Everything's part of a small world.
Exactly. And with that absolutely grandiose thought to the end of this MNCAA Gophers podcast segment, we will see you next week at the rink.